It was a quiet afternoon when the sky hung low with gray clouds, and a soft wind carried the scent of rain. The old cemetery stood still, the air filled with the faint rustle of dry leaves brushing against the worn stones. A black car stopped near the gate, and a man stepped out dressed neatly in a dark suit. His face looked calm, but his eyes carried the weight of years. He was a man the world called successful, a billionaire who had built everything from nothing. People respected him, feared him, admired him. But inside he felt only silence, the kind of silence that money could never fill. He had come that day to visit a grave that few people knew he cared about. It belonged to someone who had once been close to him, someone who reminded him that life wasn't just about numbers and profits. He stood by the gravestone for a while, staring at the name carved into it, thinking about how time erased even the strongest connections. As he turned to leave, something caught his attention. A few rows away, two small figures knelt beside a freshly covered grave. The wind blew their thin jackets, and their small hands clutched a bunch of wildflowers tied together with a shoelace. They couldn't have been more than 8 years old. He hesitated. Something about them drew him closer. Their heads were bowed, their voices soft. He couldn't hear everything they said, but a few words reached him through the wind. "Mama, we miss you." "We'll be good, Mama, we promise." The man stopped walking. His heart gave a small, painful twist. He didn't mean to listen, but the sadness in their voices held him there. The little girl brushed the dirt from the grave, her eyes red and tired. Beside her, her brother placed the flowers carefully, like it was the most important thing in the world. "We don't know where to go now," the boy whispered, "but we'll stay close. We won't let anyone take us away from you." The man swallowed hard. He hadn't felt this kind of ache in years. Slowly, he took a step closer, clearing his throat gently so he wouldn't scare them. The twins looked up quickly, their big eyes filled with surprise and fear. "Hello," he said softly. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to disturb you." The little girl stood up, holding her brother's hand tightly. "We're not doing anything wrong," she said, her voice trembling. "I know you're not," the man said kindly. "I just saw you here. Are you all right?" The boy shook his head, not in anger but confusion. "Our mama is here now," he said, pointing to the grave. "She went to sleep and didn't wake up." The man's throat tightened. He looked at the grave and saw the simple wooden marker, the letters hand-carved and uneven. It was fresh, no stone yet, just dirt and a cross. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "Was she sick?" The children looked at each other. The girl finally spoke. She was tired. She said her heart hurt. Then one morning she didn't move. The people from the building came and took her away. The man took a slow breath, trying to stay composed. "Do you have anyone else? Any family?" The twins both shook their heads. "It's just us," the boy said. "Mama said we'll always have each other." For a moment, none of them spoke. The wind blew again, scattering a few petals from the wildflowers across the ground. "Are you hungry?" the man asked gently. "I can take you somewhere to eat." The little girl's eyes dropped to the ground. "Mama told us not to go with strangers," she whispered. He nodded slowly, understanding. "Your mother was a wise woman," he said. "She wanted to keep you safe." He reached into his coat pocket and took out a small paper bag from the bakery he'd stopped at earlier. He placed it on the ground near them. "It's just some bread," he said. "You don't have to take it, but it's here if you get hungry." The children didn't move. They just looked at the bag and then back at the man. Their faces were pale, their lips dry. He could see they hadn't eaten properly in days. He wanted to stay, to ask more, to help somehow. But something stopped him. Maybe it was the fear of making them more scared. Maybe it was the guilt he couldn't explain yet. He nodded gently and turned to leave. As he walked away, he heard the girl whisper, "Mama said angels sometimes wear black coats." He stopped for a moment, his eyes closing. Then he kept walking, but that voice stayed with him long after he left the cemetery. That night, he sat alone in his large, empty home. The city lights shone through the tall windows, but they brought no comfort. The sound of the twins' voices echoed in his mind. "Mama, we miss you." "We'll be good." He tried to work, but the words on his laptop blurred. His hands trembled slightly as he poured himself a glass of water. He thought about the children sitting there, the grave, the wildflowers tied with a shoelace. He wondered how they would survive the night. Finally, unable to bear it, he called one of his assistants and asked for information about recent burials at the local cemetery. It was unusual for him to make personal requests like this, but he didn't care about appearances anymore. He just needed to know who that woman was. The next morning he returned to the cemetery. The sky was clearer now, but the air was still heavy. The twins were still there, sitting by the same grave, hugging each other to stay warm. The bread bag he had left was half open, only a few crumbs inside. He walked closer. This time the children didn't look afraid. The boy even gave a small nod of recognition. "You're back," the girl said quietly. "Yes," he replied. "I wanted to see how you were." She looked down at her hands. "We didn't eat all the bread. We saved some for later." He smiled faintly. "That's smart. You must be very brave." The boy looked up at him curiously. "Why do you come here? Do you have someone sleeping here too?" The man's eyes softened. "Yes," he said. "Someone I cared about very much." The twins nodded as if they understood. Children had a way of sensing pain even without words. He noticed the photograph lying near the grave. It was a little faded, but he could see the face clearly. A young woman with kind eyes and a gentle smile. Something inside him shifted. The woman looked strangely familiar. "Is this your mother?" he asked carefully. The twins nodded proudly. "That's her. She always smiled like that, even when she was sad," the girl said. He crouched down, looking closer at the picture. His heart skipped a beat. He had seen that face before, years ago, in a busy office filled with people. She had worked for his company once, a quiet, hard-working woman who never complained. Then one day she disappeared after some misunderstanding. He never knew what happened to her after that. Now she was gone. He stood up slowly, his chest tight. "What was her name?" he asked softly. The girl told him. The sound of it hit him like a wave of guilt and sorrow. He looked at the grave again, realizing that life had brought him here for a reason. He didn't know what to do next, but he knew he couldn't walk away this time. As the sun began to set, the children gathered their things. A small bag, a few clothes, and the photo. He wanted to ask where they would sleep that night, but he was afraid of the answer. Instead, he said, "I'll come back tomorrow. Will you be here?" They both nodded. He gave them a gentle smile. "All right then. Take care of each other until I see you again." As he walked back to his car, he turned around one last time. The twins were still standing there side by side, waving softly. That image stayed in his mind as he drove away. Two small souls alone in a big, uncaring world. And for the first time in many years, the man felt his heart ache not for what he had lost, but for what he might still be able to save. That night, when he closed his eyes, he saw the children again, their faces lit by the fading sunlight, their voices whispering to the grave. And deep inside, he knew this was not the end of their story. It was just the beginning of something that would change. The next morning, he woke up earlier than usual. The sky outside his window was pale and quiet, still half asleep. For the first time in years, his mind wasn't on meetings, contracts, or numbers. Instead, he kept thinking about the two small faces he had seen the day before. He couldn't explain why they mattered so much to him. Maybe it was the sadness in their eyes. Maybe it was the memory of their mother's photograph. Or maybe it was something deeper. Something that told him fate was trying to say something. He had breakfast without tasting it, his thoughts miles away. The chair across the table was empty, as always. He had no family, no one waiting for him at home. His success had built walls instead of bridges. Before leaving, he stopped by the kitchen and told his house staff to pack some warm food, water, and blankets. They looked surprised, and he never made personal requests, but they didn't question him. When he reached the cemetery again, the morning air was cool and still. The twins were there, sitting close together, their heads bent. The sight both relieved and broke him. He walked toward them quietly, not wanting to startle them. The boy saw him first and gave a small smile. "You came back," he said. "I told you I would," the man replied with a gentle tone. "Did you sleep here last night?" The girl nodded shyly. "We didn't want to go far. Mama might get lonely." He looked around. The ground was damp and their clothes were thin. He could see the faint marks of where they had laid on the grass. The thought made his chest ache. He handed them the food he had brought. "It's still warm," he said softly. "Eat, please. You need your strength." They hesitated, glancing at each other. Then the boy took the box slowly and whispered, "Thank you." As they ate quietly, he stood nearby, his thoughts running wild. He couldn't stop thinking about their mother. How she used to smile politely every time she passed his office. How she stayed late when others left early. He remembered how she disappeared suddenly after a small mistake someone had blamed her for. He hadn't looked into it back then. To him, it was just another employee issue, but now, standing here, he realized that one careless decision might have ruined her entire life. He crouched down beside the grave and looked at the wooden marker again. The letters were carved unevenly but filled with love. Someone had written her name with effort, not money. He spoke softly, more to himself than anyone else. "I knew her once," he said. "She worked for me a long time ago." The twins looked up, surprised. "You knew our mama?" The boy asked. He nodded slowly. "Yes, she was a good woman, kind, always smiling even when things were hard." The girl's eyes brightened for a moment. "She said she worked for a big company once. But then everything went bad." His heart sank. He didn't ask how bad it got. He could already imagine. The weight of guilt grew heavier. "What happened after that?" he asked gently. "She tried to find other jobs," the boy said quietly. "But people didn't want her. She got sick sometimes, but she never told us much. She said we didn't need to worry, that one day a kind man would help us." The man looked at them with disbelief. "She said that?" "Yes," the girl whispered. "She said there's always someone meant to help even if they don't know it yet." He felt a strange warmth and sadness mix inside him. Maybe she had known somehow. Maybe she had believed in something bigger than pain. For a while they just sat there, the silence gentle but heavy with unspoken things. The wind rustled through the trees, carrying the sound of distant bells from the nearby church. "Do you have anywhere to stay?" he finally asked. The twins shook their heads. "We were living in a small room," the boy said. "But after Mama, we couldn't pay, so the owner told us to leave." The man closed his eyes briefly, trying to steady his emotions. "Do you have anything from her? Any papers or phone numbers?" The girl opened a small cloth bag. Inside were only a few things: the photograph, a comb, a letter folded many times, and a small bracelet with faded beads. "May I see the letter?" he asked gently. She nodded and handed it to him. The paper was worn, the handwriting small and careful. He read the first few lines and his breath caught. It was a note from their mother, written before she died. It said she wished she could give her children a better life, but trusted the world to send someone kind to help them when she was gone. His eyes burned, and he had to blink several times before he could continue. He gave the letter back carefully, as if it were made of glass. He didn't know what to do next. Every part of him wanted to take them home immediately, but he also knew they didn't trust him completely yet. He couldn't just force them to go with a stranger, even if his intentions were good. He decided to take it one step at a time. "Would you like to go somewhere warm for a little while?" he asked. "Just to rest and eat something better. I can bring you back here after." The twins looked at each other again. The girl seemed unsure, but the boy finally nodded. "Just for a little while," he said. "But we come back here after." "Of course," the man replied with a soft smile. He led them to his car, making sure they sat comfortably in the back seat. They looked around wide-eyed at the leather seats and soft lights, whispering to each other in amazement. When they reached his home, the huge gate opened slowly, and the twins' mouths fell open in surprise. The mansion stood tall and quiet, surrounded by gardens. "Do you really live here?" the girl asked softly. "Yes," he said, "but it's not as warm as it looks." He guided them inside, where the staff watched in silent confusion. The man gave them a look that said not to ask questions. He took the twins to the kitchen, where the cook prepared warm soup and fresh bread. The children ate quietly, shy but grateful. As they ate, the man noticed how small their hands were, how carefully they chewed, like they didn't want to waste anything. It hurt him to think they had gone through so much alone. After lunch, he let them rest in the guest room. The girl sat on the edge of the bed, looking uncertain. "It's okay," he said softly. "You can sleep. You're safe here." The boy hesitated. "You're really not mad at us for coming here?" "Mad?" he repeated gently. "No, you're my guests." For the first time, the girl smiled. A small, tired smile that reminded him so much of her mother's photograph that it made his chest tighten again. When they finally fell asleep, he stood by the door watching them for a long time. They looked peaceful, like they hadn't had a real rest in days. He turned away quietly and went to his study. He sat at his desk, staring at nothing, then reached for his phone and called his assistant again, I need you to find all the employment records from 12 years ago, he said. Look for a woman with this name. The assistant hesitated. Right now, sir? Yes, right now. He hung up and leaned back in his chair, his mind heavy with memories. He remembered the day she had left. There had been rumors, something about missing money, an accusation that was never proven. He had let others handle it, too busy to care. Now he wished he had asked questions. An hour later, his assistant called back. Sir, I found her file. It says she was dismissed after a report claimed she took money from the charity account. But there's a note, another employee confessed later. The report was never updated. The man's heart sank. So she was innocent? Yes, sir. Completely. He ended the call and sat there for a long time, staring at the wall. His own negligence had destroyed her life. Because he hadn't paid attention, an innocent woman had suffered and died struggling to raise her children. He pressed his hand to his forehead, feeling the sting of tears he couldn't hold back anymore. When he finally looked up, the twins' letter flashed in his mind again. A kind man will help you one day. He whispered softly. Maybe I was supposed to be that man all along. Later that evening, when the children woke up, he sat with them near the fireplace. He didn't tell them everything, not yet, but he promised he would make sure they were never alone again. The twins listened quietly, and then the girl asked, Can we visit Mama's grave tomorrow? Of course, he said. We'll go together. As the firelight flickered on their faces, he realized something had shifted inside him. For years, his house had been filled with silence, but now, with the quiet breathing of two children in the next room, it finally felt alive again, and deep down, he knew this was just the beginning. A second chance to make things right. Not only for them, but for himself, too. The next morning, the sunlight poured through the tall windows of the mansion, casting a soft glow across the room where the twins were sleeping. The man stood by the door watching them quietly. They looked peaceful, the kind of peace that only children could have after finally feeling safe for a night. He smiled faintly, but deep inside, his heart still felt heavy. The truth about their mother's past kept haunting him. He had spent half the night looking through old files, reading everything he could find about her. Every line reminded him of how unfairly life had treated her, and how his own indifference had played a part in it. When the twins woke up, the boy rubbed his eyes and looked around in surprise as if he had forgotten where he was. The girl sat up slowly, clutching the small cloth bag that never left her side. Good morning, the man said softly from the doorway. Did you sleep well? The girl nodded shyly. It's very soft here. We never slept in a bed this big. He smiled gently. Then I'm glad you could rest. The cook brought breakfast, warm pancakes, milk, and fresh fruit. The twins looked hesitant at first, but after a gentle nod from him, they began to eat. He noticed the way they carefully shared everything, making sure neither had more than the other. Their manners, their kindness, their quiet way of speaking, everything reminded him of their mother. After breakfast, he said, I promised we'd visit your mother's grave today. Let's go, shall we? Their eyes lit up immediately. The girl held her small bag close, and they followed him to the car. The ride to the cemetery was quiet but calm. The twins looked out the window, whispering softly to each other about the flowers they would bring. When they arrived, they ran ahead to the grave, kneeling beside it as if they had come home. The man followed behind, carrying a small bouquet of white lilies. He placed them gently on the grave and stepped back. The boy touched the wooden cross, whispering, Mama, we're here again. And the man we told you about came back. He's really kind. The girl nodded, looking up at the sky. We're okay, Mama, don't worry. The man stood silently, feeling a lump rise in his throat. He hadn't cried in years, not even when people close to him had left his life. But now, standing behind these children, the tears came quietly. After a few minutes, he asked softly, Would you like to tell me more about your mother? What was she like? The boy smiled faintly. She was funny sometimes. She used to sing when she cooked. And when it rained, she said the sky was washing away all the bad things. The girl added, She always said we should be kind even if the world isn't. She said kindness makes you strong. He listened carefully, every word cutting deeper and deeper into his heart. He wished he had known her better back then. Maybe he could have helped her. Maybe things could have been different. On the way back to the car, the twins walked beside him quietly. After a few moments, the boy looked up and asked, Why do you help us? The man paused for a second, caught off guard by the question. Because I think your mother would have wanted someone to, he said honestly. And maybe because I owe her more than I can ever repay. The boy frowned a little. Owe her? He nodded. She worked for me once. I didn't realize how much she struggled. I wasn't there when she needed help the most. But I want to make it right now. The twins didn't say anything. They just looked at him quietly, as if trying to understand something far bigger than their years. When they returned home, the man arranged for a doctor to visit and check the twins' health. They were both undernourished but otherwise fine. He promised himself he would make sure they never had to worry about food or safety again. The next few days passed quietly. The twins began to open up more. They played in the garden, helped the house staff with small chores, and sometimes sat near the man's office while he worked, drawing pictures on sheets of paper. Their laughter brought warmth to a house that had felt empty for too long. One evening, as the sun began to set, he walked into the garden and saw them chasing butterflies near the fountain. For a moment, he just stood there watching, the sound of their laughter mixing with the soft splash of water. He hadn't realized how much he missed moments like this. The boy noticed him and waved. Come play with us. He chuckled softly. I'm not very good at catching butterflies, he said. Then you can be the judge. The girl shouted. You can tell who catches one first. He laughed and walked closer, sitting down on a bench nearby. Watching them play, he realized how much they had already changed his world. The mansion that used to echo with silence now felt alive again. Later that night, as they ate dinner, the girl suddenly asked, Will we have to go away soon? The question hit him unexpectedly. Why would you think that? He asked gently. She looked down at her plate. People always say good things don't last. Maybe when we're better, you won't need us here. He leaned forward, his voice soft but firm. Listen to me. You're not here because I need you. You're here because you belong here now as long as you want to stay. The boy looked up, his eyes shining. You mean we can stay? Yes, the man said with a small smile. You can stay. They both smiled, and in that simple moment something in him healed a little. The next day, however, a call from his lawyer interrupted that peace. The lawyer informed him that since the children were technically orphans with no legal guardian, social services might get involved soon. They could be placed into foster care, maybe even separated. The thought sent a chill through him. He couldn't let that happen. He knew what foster systems could be like, cold, unpredictable, and sometimes cruel. These children had already lost too much. He decided to contact the authorities himself. He explained that he was caring for them and wanted to apply for temporary guardianship. The process would take time, they said, but it was possible. When he told the twins later that night, they listened quietly. That means you'll be our family. The boy asked carefully. He nodded. If you'll have me. The girl's eyes filled with tears, but she smiled. Mama said someone kind would find us. I think she meant you. He swallowed hard, his voice barely steady. I think so too. Days turned into weeks. Slowly, they began to settle into a routine. The children went to school nearby, and every morning they waved goodbye from the gate while he stood watching. He found himself waiting for that moment each day, their smiles as they left, their laughter when they returned. He even cleared out a room in the house and turned it into a small library for them. He filled it with storybooks, art supplies, and soft chairs. It became their favorite place. One evening, as the rain poured outside, the girl sat by the window reading while the boy drew pictures. The man sat nearby with a cup of tea, feeling something he hadn't felt in years. Peace. But just as life began to feel steady, one evening he came home late from work to find the twins missing. Their room was empty. The blankets were gone. Panic hit him like a storm. He searched the entire house, calling their names, but there was no answer. He ran outside into the garden, the rain soaking through his coat. Still nothing. He called his driver, his staff. No one had seen them leave. Fear clawed at his chest. He couldn't lose them, not now. Not after everything. He got into his car and drove toward the cemetery, his headlights cutting through the rain. Deep down, he knew that's where they would go. When he arrived, the wind was harsh, the rain falling in sheets. And there they were, kneeling beside their mother's grave, soaked and shivering. He rushed to them, kneeling in the mud. "What are you doing here?" he cried softly. "You could have been hurt." The boy looked up with tears in his eyes. They said someone might take us away. We didn't want to go. We wanted to stay with Mama. The man's heart broke completely. He gathered them both into his arms, holding them close despite the rain. "No one is taking you away," he whispered. "I promise. You're safe with me." The twins clung to him tightly, their small hands gripping his coat. For a long moment, the three of them stayed there in the rain, not as a billionaire and two orphans, but as something deeper. A family the world had tried to separate but couldn't. As they drove back home, the twins leaned against him, exhausted, their eyes closing slowly. He looked at their peaceful faces and whispered to himself, "I failed your mother once. I won't fail you." When they reached home, he carried them inside one by one, wrapped them in blankets, and stayed by their side until they fell asleep. That night, for the first time, he didn't feel alone. The sound of their quiet breathing filled the silence that had haunted his house for years. And as he sat there watching them, he realized something. Wealth could build walls, but love could break them down. He looked out the window where the rain was easing and said softly, "Tomorrow, I'll make it right. For her, and for them." The next morning, the billionaire woke up early with a strange heaviness in his chest. The silence in his house felt louder than ever. He had spent the last few days visiting the twins at the graveyard, bringing them food, warm clothes, and even small toys to make them smile. But last night, when he went to check on them again, they were gone. The small blanket they used to sleep on was folded neatly beside the grave, and the only thing left behind was a small drawing, two stick figures holding hands with a taller figure beside them. Underneath it was written, "Mama will be okay." He stood there for a long time, feeling the cold wind brushing against his face. The fear that something bad had happened to them refused to leave his mind. He called the graveyard caretaker, hoping the twins might have gone with him, but the man said he hadn't seen them since afternoon. Panic began to rise inside him. He called his driver, and together they started searching around the nearby streets, asking people if they had seen two small children walking together. Hours passed, but no one seemed to know anything. As evening fell, the billionaire went to the nearest police station. He showed the officer the drawing the twins had left behind and told them everything: how he found them at the graveyard, their story, and how they suddenly disappeared. The officer took notes patiently and promised to send people to search the nearby areas. Still, deep down, the billionaire couldn't calm himself. He knew those children didn't know how to survive on the streets alone. They were small, innocent, and scared of the world. That night he couldn't eat or sleep. He sat near his window, staring into the dark sky, wondering where they could be. His mind kept replaying their soft voices, their shy smiles, and the way they held each other tightly when scared. For the first time in years, he felt something more powerful than his wealth, a genuine fear of losing someone who mattered to him. By morning, he was back on the road. He went from shelter to shelter, from parks to bus stations, searching for any clue. Most people just shook their heads. Hours turned into a full day, and exhaustion started to pull him down. But just as he was about to give up for the night, his phone rang. It was a volunteer from a local shelter, who said two children matching his description had been seen near an old warehouse on the outskirts of town. Without wasting a second, he drove straight there. The warehouse looked abandoned, broken windows, rusted metal, and walls covered with dust. As he stepped inside, the faint sound of coughing echoed in the air. He followed the sound until he found them, the twins curled up in a corner under a torn blanket. They looked tired, hungry, and cold. When they saw him, the little girl's eyes widened with fear. She whispered something to her brother, and they both tried to move away. But he stopped and slowly knelt down, speaking softly. "It's me," he said gently. "I was worried about you." The boy looked at him cautiously and asked, "You came to find us?" He nodded, his eyes wet. "Of course I did. I promised your mother's memory I would take care of you." The little girl's lip trembled as she looked up. "We didn't want to be a burden," she said. "Mama said not everyone stays forever." Her words hit him like a knife. He couldn't hold back his tears anymore. Right there, inside that cold, empty warehouse, a man who had built empires and commanded thousands broke down in front of two little children. He cried not just for them, but for all the pain their mother had gone through, the pain he had unknowingly caused. Winds confused the Ted but gentle-hearted moved closer to him. The boy reached out and held his hand, saying softly, "Mama said people cry when they remember something true." Those simple words shattered him even more. He hugged them both tightly, whispering, "You're safe now. I promise I won't let anything happen to you again." He took them to his car, wrapped them in warm blankets, and drove them home. For the first time in years, his mansion felt alive again, not because of lights or decoration, but because of the quiet breathing of two small souls sleeping peacefully under his roof. The next few days were spent helping them settle in. He made sure they had everything: a cozy room, warm clothes, and toys. But most importantly, he made sure they felt safe. They were shy at first, not used to kindness or comfort. The girl would often wake up at night and walk to her brother's bed just to hold his hand. The billionaire would sometimes stand outside their room and listen to their soft giggles. It warmed his heart in a way he hadn't felt in decades. Soon he hired a teacher to help them with studies and a caretaker to watch over them when he went to work. But he didn't stay away for long. Every evening he came home early just to spend time with them. They would sit by the fireplace and the twins would tell stories about their mother, how she sang to them every night, how she made paper stars to decorate their small room, and how she always told them that kindness was the richest gift in the world. One night, as they talked, the girl asked, "Did you know our mama?" The question caught him off guard. He took a slow breath before replying, "Yes, I did. A long time ago. She was one of the kindest people I ever met." The boy tilted his head. "Then why didn't you help her?" The room fell silent. The billionaire stared into the fire, the flames dancing like old memories. "Because I didn't know what she was going through," he said quietly. "But I should have. I made a mistake that hurt her life, and I'll never forgive myself for that." The girl looked at him, her innocent eyes filled with understanding beyond her years. "Mama said everyone deserves a second chance," she said softly. That night, after the twins fell asleep, the billionaire sat alone in his study. He opened his old files and searched for her records in his company database. What he found broke him further. Years ago, she had been falsely accused of mishandling company funds, something that wasn't true. He had signed the termination paper without even reviewing the case properly, because he trusted his managers. The guilt was unbearable. He realized his carelessness had destroyed an innocent woman's life and left her children orphaned. He knew what he had to do. The next morning, he called a meeting with his top management. For the first time in years, he spoke from his heart. He told them everything: how a single mistake of his had ruined someone's life and how he wouldn't let such injustice happen again. He ordered an investigation into all unfair dismissals from the past and made sure her name was cleared officially. Then, he took it one step further. He announced the creation of a foundation in her memory, one that would help single mothers and children who had nowhere to go. The staff in the room were shocked. They had never seen their boss this emotional, this human. When the news spread, people praised him for his honesty and courage. But for him, it wasn't about reputation anymore. It was about making peace with his conscience. That evening, he came home and told the twins about the foundation. Their faces lit up with pride. The boy smiled and said, "Mama would be happy." He nodded, his eyes misty. "I hope so," he whispered. The next few weeks were filled with small moments of healing. The twins grew stronger, healthier, and happier. The billionaire found himself laughing more, smiling often, and even cooking breakfast with them on weekends. The emptiness that once filled his mansion was replaced by warmth and laughter. One night, he stood by their door watching them sleep. They looked peaceful, their small faces glowing under the soft light. In that quiet moment, he realized something. He had spent his whole life chasing success, but this feeling of love and belonging was something he had never known. He whispered softly, "I couldn't save your mother, but I'll protect you both for the rest of my life." As he walked away, the boy stirred slightly and opened his eyes. He saw the billionaire standing in the hallway and whispered, "Good night, Uncle." The man smiled for the first time in years, a real smile that came from his heart. For the first time, he felt at peace, as if the universe had finally given him a second chance to do what was right. Months passed, and the billionaire's home no longer felt like an empty palace. The laughter of the twins echoed through every hallway, bouncing off the marble floors and filling every corner that had once been cold and silent. The mansion had found its heartbeat again. The man who used to live only for business now spent his mornings pouring milk into 2 small bowls of cereal, listening to the twins talk about school and laughing at their innocent stories. They had grown so much in a short time. Their cheeks were no longer pale, their eyes no longer scared. They smiled more freely now, and sometimes, when the billionaire wasn't looking, they whispered quietly to each other, saying that maybe their mother was watching from the sky, happy to see them safe. The billionaire had kept his promise. He didn't just give them shelter and food, and he gave them family. He spent time teaching them lessons he had learned from his life. He told them about honesty, kindness, and the importance of helping others. In return, they taught him how to smile again, how to feel joy in small things, and how love can heal even the deepest wounds. Every evening after dinner, the 3 of them sat near the fireplace. The twins would talk about their school day, how their teacher praised their handwriting, or how they helped another classmate who didn't have lunch. The billionaire listened to them with a warm heart. He realized that these children, who had faced so much pain at such a young age, were still filled with goodness. They carried the same gentle spirit their mother once had. One evening, as they sat together, the little girl walked up to him holding a small brown envelope. "Uncle," she said softly, "we found this in Mama's old bag. It's for you." He frowned slightly, surprised. "For me?" he asked. The boy nodded. "It has your company's name written on the corner. Maybe Mama wrote it before she—" His voice faded before he could finish. The billionaire took the envelope carefully, his hands trembling. Inside was a handwritten letter, a little faded with time but still clear. He opened it slowly, his heart pounding as he began to read. "Dear Sir," it began, "if you are reading this, it means life has taken its turn. I wanted to say something I never got to say. Years ago, I lost everything because of something that wasn't my fault. I was angry at first, not just at you, but at the world. But over time, I learned that anger only makes pain heavier, so I forgave you. I truly did. I know deep in my heart that you never meant to harm me. If one day our paths ever cross again, please don't carry guilt. Just remember me as someone who once believed in your kindness. And if by any chance you ever find my children, please take care of them. Love them the way every child deserves to be loved. That will be enough for me." The billionaire's eyes filled with tears as he finished reading. His hands shook and his heart felt heavy but full. He looked at the twins sitting in front of him, watching him quietly with innocent eyes. The little girl whispered, "Mama wrote that before she got sick. She said good people make mistakes, but real hearts fix them." He couldn't speak. Words wouldn't come out. Instead, he knelt down and hugged them both tightly. "Your mother was the bravest, kindest person I've ever known," he said softly. "I couldn't save her, but I promise I'll love you both for as long as I live." The twins hugged him back, their small arms wrapping around his neck. The boy whispered, "Mama said you'd cry when you read it. She was right." They all laughed through their tears. The billionaire gently wiped his face and smiled. "Your mama was always right," he said. After that day, something changed inside him. He felt lighter, as if a long-closed door inside his heart had finally opened. He no longer saw himself as a man haunted by guilt, but as someone blessed with a second chance. He spent more time with the twins, taking them to parks, teaching them how to ride bicycles, and even baking cookies with them in the kitchen, something he had never done in his entire life. He also made sure the foundation he created in their mother's memory grew stronger. Every month he visited families the foundation supported, single mothers, orphans, and children without homes. Sometimes he brought the twins along. They loved meeting other kids and often helped hand out food or toys. Seeing them smile while helping others made his heart swell with pride. One afternoon, after visiting a small orphanage, the girl asked him, "Uncle, why do you do all this for others?" He smiled gently. "Because your mother taught me what true kindness means," he said. "Helping others isn't just about giving money. It's about giving love and making sure no one feels forgotten." The twins nodded and the boy said, "Then we'll help too. We'll make sure no kid ever feels alone again." Hearing that made the billionaire realize how much they had grown. They weren't just 2 children he rescued. They were the light that guided him back to being human again. They reminded him every day that love can rebuild even a broken heart.